we do know is a human connection, human experience. If we build people in a way that they feel empowered and confident and ready to face the world, no matter how the world will look, then I think AI could play a significant role. But I think giving AI the human responsibility could be dangerous, but giving it an opportunity to allow us to be more human, that is where the opportunity lies.
Welcome to SELINTalks, the podcast where education meets innovation and conversations ignite change. Join us as we explore the frontiers of learnings with leaders and thinkers who are reshaping how we teach, learn, and connect in this digital age. Today, we are thrilled to host Efraim, a visionary at the crossroad of tradition and tech. Starting his career as a rabbi, Efraim now leads the charge in integrating AI into education, focusing on enhancing learning experiences while nurturing essential human connections. Join us as we uncover how Efraim's unique journey influences his innovative approach to education and what it means for the future of learning. Get ready for an inspiring conversation packed with insights on navigating an evolving educational landscape. Thank you so much for being on our podcast today. It's a great pleasure that you're here. I have heard that you have a very unique approach to staying energized and inspired, even with your busy schedule. Could you share with us your secret on or a recent experience that really rejuvenated your passion for education?
That's a great question. For me, it's been something that each interaction I feel I get energized from. Each person that I meet has their own story, their own experiences, and that can really give me a new lease on why I'm doing what I'm doing, the lives that we can shape, the meaning that we can bring to people, that, and the fact that we get to connect with some amazing people from around the world. Each time I jump on a call, I don't know what I'm going to get, and just being able to learn from each person, I think gives me a huge amount of energy. And if it wasn't for those people, the humans that I get to interact with, to learn from, to grow with, it wouldn't be the same.
Speaking of inspiration, let's trace back to the beginning of your journey. What led you to merge your passion for education with technology? And how do you balance this with the human aspect of teaching?
Another great question. This is something quite close to my heart. I grew up in the ultra-Orthodox Jewish community in Australia, and I trained as a rabbi, so probably not the most typical route to going into education, technology, but I always felt this strong sense towards the impact that education can have on a society, and those experiences were really powerful. And I had a short stint after training for just under a decade. So the first part of my life, I was training as a rabbi, community rabbi, and I went in and I felt this deep connection with the people, but I wanted to be there for them and not necessarily from a religious lens or from and being able to do that with people, with individuals, with students, I found the most personally, I found the most moving and soul, like my soul, I felt a connection with it. And this sort of led me down a different route to what I had trained my entire life for, to be a rabbi, and it was going into education. And I applied to work in a school, a special needs unit in London here. And for me, I loved the fact that it was smaller classroom sizes where I could work with each individual student. But as I got more involved with each student and I got to learn who they were, I realized that instead of coming and teaching the curriculum and then working out how the curriculum could fit with the students, I realized in a small classroom, it's easier to be able to learn their strengths and work with them, give them agency, give them ownership of their learning. But how do I do that in a way that I can sustainably do that? So I might be able to do that and it will take hours to create a lesson plan, and the lesson's only half an hour, 45 minutes, and I could be up to 1 o'clock in the morning. But how do I do that? And technology was a really incredible tool for that. And I I was really fortunate that Quizlet, which is quite big in America, had launched the international branch in London, and the head of Quizlet reached out to people who are using it quite often, and I was using AI to connect with the students, and it was an amazing tool, and it is an amazing tool, and it allowed me to be able to give opportunities to students who maybe in the past were in the back of the class and they were sort of posting their way through, but really to learn their strengths and learn where they could come in, and bringing technology to allow them to get the most out of that, I found was this incredible blend of the human side and the technology. So that just ignited that. And as I moved more into leadership and other other roles and coaching, and now doing it across organizations internationally, I've noticed that this piece is so crucial. If we can get the human side right and we can really understand each individual, AI can offer us the world of opportunity, and technology,
Right.
emerging technologies could. But if we come in with the technology leading the way and we lose touch with our human side, we can really just create more tension and frustration, and possibly we can be even more disconnected from each other.
Very true. So you were trained to do something else for almost the beginning of your adulthood, and then you move to education, and you got technology. And was there any a point wherein you thought that maybe this isn't the right path?
I think I always think that is always a question. I think in education especially, there's this external pressures. There's so much going on in the classroom or in leadership. Personal, where you've got your family, and you're having to balance that with the expectations of work. But there's also there's other elements as well. You've got the pressures of parents, external bodies, exam results. There's so much going on in a school environment, and it can become really overwhelming, and we can lose track with why we initially wanted to go into the profession in the first place. So I think that definitely it pushed me and made me question my decision, and it still does in a way. But being able to see the impact that successful education can have on people, there's nothing more fulfilling in my mind than being able to have an impact of one moment on the future of a person's life. And I think education does that.
So you mentioned that there are times when you kind of question it, and there are bigger picture in place and everything. What is one thing that actually keeps you grounded towards your work?
I think it's the students. The students, their experience, their learning, going back to how I was, if I were to go back in time, and I've been doing that recently. If I was 3 or 5 years ago in that classroom where I was interacting with students on a day-to-day basis, where in our classrooms today, what we sometimes underestimate is the impact that we as adults can have on individual students. Right. Their moments that they have, they can truly shape them into being the person they are. But we can get caught up in all the details quite easily, just to survive, just being able to get through, being able to tick certain boxes, but the human experience for each student, and the moments that we can have a 30-second interaction with a child that can really change their perception on something is a strong reminder, and it's also quite a humbling experience. And especially in education, where there's financial pressure, there's expectations from all directions. It's hard for a teacher sometimes to be reminded of those moments when we're stuck in it, and for a leader as well to be reminded of those moments when they're not in the classroom. But then there is a moment that clicks. And I also think, just on the negative side, unfortunately, we can get manipulated without realizing it, or guilted into doing something, or you need to remember why you're doing this in the first place. But it's not a negative association. It's the powerful and personal association to those moments, those stories that remind us why we do what we do.
Yeah, very true. Very profound, actually, the way you were seeing things as a perspective in place. And I really find it very interesting. From whatever you just described, it is clear that the place you hold, you hold a very strong emphasis on maintaining a human touch alongside technological integration. Um, how do you ensure that AI tools enhance rather than replace the essential human interactions in education?
Having been really fortunate to see AI and experience AI 7 or 8 years ago, before generative AI became big, being able to just see it, not necessarily to the level that
Wow.
others have, I've been able to see how AI can fit into a very specific role. But if we give it the opportunity, there's certain sacred pieces of our human connection that if we give it over to a machine, it can take away from who we are and what we're doing. For example, those moments after a class to speak to a student and get to know them and get to know what's going on in their learning. AI might help us with certain aspects, but it can also take away from the very essence of what we're there for, which is to be able to nurture and to guide each student's own personal learning journey. What AI is incredibly powerful at is we have it because of all those expectations that we discussed earlier. There's significant amount of pressure that's put on students and put on parents and put on staff members who are supporting students and leaders. And it can come from the community, it can come from society. And if we use AI to allow us to get clarity on that, what AI can do is it can create more noise and more tension. Not only do we have lesson plans, and not only do we have expectations, now we've got AI, so you should be doing this faster, or you should be doing more of this. Whereas I think what AI could do is if we could strip it back and we could, there's an incredible book on de-implementation, the power of if we can get rid of unnecessary stress or unnecessary pressures, if we could, from an educational lens, understand what it is that we're trying to do. You walk in a school around the world, and every school will have a unique feel, a unique experience that the leadership is hoping for them to get. But with all the pressures that we add on, we can sometimes lose touch with what is it that we want this child to walk away with. And it's not just academic, and it's not just external pressures, but this can tie into the day-to-day of how we as a school operate. But if AI were used, and technology in general, if it was used alongside a real sense of clarity as to what we're trying to do day in, day out, and we were able to understand that we're not getting AI to replace what we're doing, we're getting AI to allow us to enhance what we're doing, then I think the switch is very different. It's strategic, it's meaningful, it's purpose-driven, where AI comes in. And another example, a silly example, could be from something as simple as where the conversation sometimes is in the current states. In the early 1900s, when the car was being invented, there was this idea that people were comfortable with horses. And there's an image, I'm happy to share it with you after, that I've sort of created using AI, which depicts a person who's attached their car to a horse because that's what they're familiar with. And and I think that's a great example of what AI could potentially be, is that we've got this incredible technology that I don't believe society has ever seen. And there's someone who wrote a book called Sir Anthony Seldon, and the book is called The Fourth Education Revolution. And he speaks about how over history, AI could provide us a new way, a new pathway forward with education. But if we use it in the same way we've been using it until now, where you've got one teacher at the front of the class and one source of information, then we are just going to regurgitate the same pressures and same expectations that we have. But practically, if we were to think about what education could be, and AI could allow us to do that, then the personalized experience that each student has with their own learning could be very different to this. But I do believe that if used strategically and meaningfully, AI is not the answer that changes everything and gets rid of the teachers. I think that's dangerous. I think what AI could do is it could be that piece in the puzzle which can allow us to really rethink how we can connect with each other and our students more meaningfully. And especially if we're taking away a lot of the extra pressure and time, now that we've got that time, what can we do with that? What can we do to allow the role of a teacher to truly be there for each student, to allow them to nurture each student's journey?
Do you think, or have you seen teachers yet, I mean, educators still kind of not accepting AI how it is supposed to be, or do you see them struggle? And if you do you have like certain maybe advice for them, what it would be?
I think there's a balance. It's hard to get that right. I think if we were to take a lens, and it's easy almost from a distance, where there's teachers right now in a classroom teaching a lesson and we're sitting, discussing them. I think it's difficult to be able to understand what the pain is on the ground of them going into the classroom and having lesson after lesson, administrative tasks that they have to finish, marking tests, preparing lessons. There's so much that's on their plates. To be able to navigate AI, it shouldn't just be another additional piece on top of what they're doing, but rather they should have time to be able to explore it safely. I think teachers, there's someone who I'm quite close with. We work together. Her name is Marissa Seidler-Holder. She's an incredible educator. And she runs a company called Teaching with Machines. And what I really appreciate about what Marissa represents is teachers have this incredible power. If we go back to being a teacher, teachers already have these incredible skills that they can bring in. And AI works so well with what they have. The ability to be able to prompt, the ability to be able to think creatively, to adapt, to iterate. They've got the skills already there. And I think if it was made accessible to them from where they're at, as opposed to telling them, this is another thing that you have on top of what you're doing, there could be a real shift in perspective. But empowering them and giving them space to be able to do it with the skills that they already have, instead of talking at them or giving them another task on their list, is a big way. I think that can change.
And I think it has happened all the way around, especially with educators or people who are very new to the job market as well, that this pressure of knowing AI, it's just too much to be there. I mean, rather than telling them, okay, this is something that you can explore and it will work for you, it is almost like an implication that you should be knowing all of these things to be able to do all of these things. I think that narrative is not great.
Yeah, 100%. And I think to add, if I could add to what you're saying, Shruti, there's an element of the schools themselves, the leadership themselves feel overwhelmed with it. No one really knows what AI, the capacity of AI is. AI is changing and evolving so quickly. And having the professional space to be able to do that in a safe and comfortable environment where teachers can explore it within the safety of their school, and to learn, and leaders as well, to think about what the possibilities could be. I also think parents and students and staff should be a part of that conversation together. I don't think our current educational system is in many ways top down, where we tell people what to do or we show people what to do. Whereas I think working together to listen and it's not about having answers, but sometimes it's about asking the right questions and discussing these questions together.
So true. And I think you rightly mentioned that there is not all of the stakeholders are in the conversation. Like, it's either the leaders and the educators, that's about it. But the system is a lot more than just these two aspects. So building on the human touch that you mentioned, coaching plays a very significant role in your approach. Could you explain how your coaching has helped educators leverage AI in the ways that can preserve or even enhance their conditions or connections with students?
For me, I was going through, just recapping. I came from a rabbinic lens. I was working as a rabbi, moved into education, started teaching in a special needs unit. And then I was very fortunate to be offered, as I finished my master's in education, I was able to get into leadership positions. And what I noticed was as I got into more senior positions and progressed, I felt there was a greater disconnect from the staff who were teaching on the grounds. And there was an experience that I had where we brought in, as a school, we brought in an external consultant, and the consultant came in with their clipboard and their, the preset ideas of what the school needs to be doing. I'm sure you know that type of scenario.
I know.
And the goal is obviously to make positive change within the school, but what ended up happening was staff felt even more insecure. We felt that we as leaders for sure, and even as teachers. And I was doing both at the time. I was teaching classes, and I was also, meeting with staff and trying to support on a leadership level. I noticed that we became more like restrictive, and we like insular. We wanted to protect ourselves because we felt we as individuals and our culture was not being protected or valued. It was, this is what you need to do, and I think that approach can be quite damaging. A consultant has wisdom and expertise that they can come with from as an external view of what's going on, but if it comes at the cost of losing that personal touch with the people we're speaking to and listening to them and understanding the complexities and the nuance of the culture, which I will never be able to do. If I'm going into an organization, it'll take me years to understand some of the culture that's there. And I think for sustainable success, there's someone who I'm quite close with, another person who I'll just mention his name because I think he really represents this in what he does. His name's Shane Leaning. He has a podcast called the Global Ed Leaders. He's an incredible educator and leader. And we both discuss this idea quite regularly about how educational leadership in many ways is a sacred task because we're protecting our culture, our community, our individuals, our people. And if we come with predetermined ideas of what a school should be doing without knowing what's going on in the grounds and without giving them space to do that, then the impact that can have, that might last for as long as our session that we have with them, or it can last with maybe a year or 2 years. But as leadership changes and as staff change, how sustainable will that change be? It's going to likely last for a shorter period of time. Whereas if we allow for the school themselves, the staff, to feel they can come together and sustainably make an impact for the long term, and they have the tools to be able to do that, then we're not coming with our ideas or answers. We're just giving them the tools that they can have on their own to be able to get there. And that's why I think the coaching approach alongside a consultancy lens can be quite a powerful mix, where you come with your wisdom, you come with your tools, you come with your expertise, but it's definitely not in a top-down or top-driven way. It's rather working with them, working alongside the people you're working with.
I think this needs to, like, the entire idea of it, the coaching and consulting thing really needs to go out more often. The exact same things that you just spoke about. It takes years for, a person to learn what kind of culture, what kind of background that do the people in an organization come from. If not years, at least few months. And by the time it is done, it's all haywired because obviously, like you said, the people are going to get, a little bit insecure, a little bit afraid as to what is going to happen. That's always a question that, okay, there's this new person who's coming in and suddenly some changes will happen and we won't be able to cope up. Have you faced that?
Yes, definitely. And I think it's making people, it's trust. It goes back to trust. I think education is all about trust. If we can build connections with the people that we're working with, whether it's a student in a classroom or a leader who's leading a school, and we're coming in as a consultant or a coach, it's ensuring that we firstly listen, we understand where they're at, and we understand their journey, and we're also not coming with any predetermined ideas, but rather listening to them, understanding where they are, where they're coming from, and if necessary, then bringing in our wisdom to allow them to make their own decisions. And I think the value and the space to be cared for, I've asked people around the world, is why I'm launching this Humans of Education. There's an immense value to just being able to listen and to be able to give space for someone else to be able to be heard and valued for who they are.
Very true. Very, very true. Looking ahead with all these advancements in AI and education methodologies, what are your predictions for the future of education, and how should education institutes prepare to adapt these changes with educators, of course?
I think from my experience, I can predict whatever will happen, but there's always going to be possibilities. And I think there's a real possibility that AI can be driven by the tech industry, and it can be driven by external parties who don't have that cultural or sensitivity towards our field of education. And there's a real risk that we lose the profession. If we look globally from a research perspective, since 2019 on a global level, the field of education has seen more teachers leave the profession than ever. We've got students who are feeling more and more pressured day in, day out after COVID, where they felt there was a bit of space. Now they're the pressure's just increased and gone back to how it was before, and sometimes
multifold.
even more pressure. And that pressure I think could be dangerous. And AI being a part of this conversation now, we can just put more and more external pressure on. But I think where it could be incredibly powerful, and what I've mentioned over the last few questions you've asked, is if we use AI to fill in that gap, we as educators have this incredible responsibility and opportunity to connect with each student's learning journey. It's the first time historically that can be possible to an individual level, whilst keeping our culture and values intact, whilst keeping our own. And if we could allow it to, I think education, it could transform, and it could become this bedrock of society that we look proudly at. If we ask people if they like learning, there's this pride that they have. If you ask people if they like school, unfortunately, there isn't that same level of pride. And I think that could change if we meaningfully and strategically bring on the individual within this process. We empower them, we give space for them to lead their own educational journey. So a child as young as 3 or as young as 5 can start thinking reflectively about what they've learnt, thinking about how that could impact them. The world as we know it, the jobs that we know, it's people are moving more rapidly from industry to industry than they have historically, moves from job to job. So those changes, we don't know what jobs are going to look like. We don't know the role that AI will play in that. But what we do know is the human connection, the human experience. If we build people in a way that they feel empowered and confident and ready to face the world, no matter how the world will look, then I think AI could play a significant role. But I think giving AI the human responsibility could be dangerous, but giving it an opportunity to allow us to be more human, that is where the opportunity lies.
I think my takeaway from this conversation about this question will be, I think it's time to be more human than ever. Because the way the things are changing and everything, obviously, if we talk about tech giants taking over, if we talk about people who do not know how education institutions or education sector works, and they take over it, they take over AI and everything, that's going to be a gap, and a very dangerous one at it. And so it kind of becomes our responsibility, whosoever are in, the stakeholders of education sector all around the world, to kind of take it on and be more human than ever.
Definitely. I could not have said that any better. I think if now is a time where we're planting a seed, and we don't know where we don't know the weather, we don't know what's going to influence us, but we do know that now is a crucial time to bring each other together, to work together collaboratively, and to bring education in the sense of educators, parents, students, leaders, the third-party providers, the tech providers, to come together and to share ideas, not in a vacuum, just each on their own, not in frustrations, so not teachers in a staff room upset, but rather hearing those frustrations and being able to work together to thinking about what education could be. And some people might say AI is not going to be this disruptive. We've had this before with iPads, we've had this before with other technology. I do think there's value to that, because there is a level of hype around what we're speaking about. But there is a legitimacy with that technology that we're speaking about is unprecedented. And if we look globally beyond just education, every sector is being impacted by that. So how do we make sure we get the very best of technology to allow us to be the very best of ourselves for humanity?
That's very, very true. Last but not the least, reflecting on all of the discussions and your extensive experience, if you could just give us one advice to the humans of education, educator at all levels, about the importance of global collaboration, what it would be, and how do you see this impacting the future of education?
I would say one word, and I think it's listen. If we could listen to each other, and we could really understand, and not for the sake of just ticking the box, but truly listen, to give space for someone else. I think that's the difference between having a monologue, a one-way conversation, and a dialogue where we can listen and we can work with each other. I think the power of listening is, unfortunately, when we have so much on our plates, it's very difficult to create space for that. But giving space to be able to allow each other to connect with what we're doing, why we're doing it, to be able to listen, understand each person's values, their journey. And this is from a 3-year-old or a 5-year-old child who has insight to an 80-year-old or 9-year-old professor. And I think our societies, as we grow in the Western world, especially, when someone retires, you give them their pat on the back, and they leave, and there's nothing that we don't really see of them or hear of them after that. They might write some books or research, but the day before, they could have been, the leading professor in a specific field. They could have been, this incredible resource, but we don't necessarily, I'm saying as a society, I don't think we give enough credit to the humanity, the people that we, and I don't think that's only because of us. I think there's external pressures. There's the Industrial Revolution, which saw us in a way that we are just a cog in a wheel. But giving ourselves time to be able to understand each other, understand what we're trying to do, understand that there's humanity beyond what we see, I think is going to anchor us in being able to make sure that we look towards a future that's exciting, opportunistic, unseen in many ways, to be able to get the most out of each other, to be able to create something in a moment where generative AI is just evolving, and it's going to be even more incredible through experience, through project-based learning. There's so many people who are bringing this wisdom together, but if we don't have an open ear and we're not actively listening, I think we are going to lose a huge amount in that process.
Yeah. The way you have explained listening is not just the, usually people, and it's fine as well, people say that, you have to listen to not react, and, you just have to listen everything, but you turned it in a different perspective. And not all the time you get to hear these kind of conversations, but I'm one of the lucky ones who can interact with people like yourself who are doing great job, and not just professionally but also to the society, because that really matters. It is not just about education sector, it is about who we are as a society, and education is one of the biggest key that actually help us who we are and build who we are.
Thank you so much, Shruti, and thank you for the opportunity to share. I think being able to have that space, like we were saying, to be able to create space, to be able to share and to learn from each other is so crucial. And I'm grateful that you gave me this opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being here, taking our time to be with us. It has been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much, Shruti.
Thank you for joining us on SELINTalks with Efraim. We have explored a journey from traditional teachings to innovative education technology, emphasizing the balance between AI's capabilities and the essential human touch. As we close, we are reminded of transformative power of education when paired with thoughtful technology. Stay curious, keep learning, and join us next time for more insights on shaping the future of education. I am Shruti Verma, the director of Selling Club, signing off.